It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I started this build by milling down some 4/4 walnut lumber. At the joiner, I flattened one face and one edge of the two rough cut boards. Over at the planer, I placed the flattened side down and planed the boards down to 3/4 of an inch in thickness. Over at the table saw, I placed the board's jointed edge against the fence. I ripped down both boards to 4 inches. It is worth noting that you can make these boards wider for a larger stool. I swapped out my ripping blade for my crosscut blade to prepare to cut the boards down to their rough length. I cut away the split end of the board and squared up the edge. Using a crosscut sled, I measured out the rough dimensions for the length and cut down the boards. With the length rough cut, I tilted the table saw blade to 48 degrees. I could then use a miter gauge set to 60 degrees to cut the compound miters for the horizontal pieces. I really appreciate your support, so if you're enjoying this video, please give it a like. It helps me reach more viewers like you. With my initial cuts done, I marked out the final length for the miters. Over at the table saw, I carefully used a miter gauge to cut the final length. Comment below and let me know whether you like a table saw or a miter saw more for this type of cut. Next, I marked out the final length for the vertical pieces. And using my crosscut sled, I crept up on the line. With my saw blade set back at 48 degrees, I cut to 42 degree angles. To do this, I clamped my piece to a 10-inch sled and slowly made the cuts. Back at the crosscut sled, I snuck up on the cuts for the vertical boards. With the majority of cuts made, I did a dry assembly. Then it was time to cut the bevels on the horizontal pieces. For these cuts, I have the blade tilted to 66 degrees. I'm using dominos to help strengthen the miter joints. I again taped up the joints and marked out their placement. I set the fence angle of the domino to match the miter angle, and then plunge the holes for the floating tenon. I did end up extending my prior marks to give me a better alignment with the domino. Over at the bandsaw, I tilted my table to match the 82-degree angle of the vertical taper on the legs, then crept up on the cut for the bottom step. I again marked out the placement for the dominoes and plunged the mortises. Due to the angle on the step, I did cut the dominoes in half here. This allowed for the angled step to sit flush. I make new videos often, so please subscribe to stay up to date on new project builds. Thank you for your support. Back at the bandsaw, I trimmed the overhang of the bottom step flush. Then I filled in these small knots with Starbond CA glue. From there, it was time to sand everything through the grits up to 180 grit. If you are looking for the tools or products I have used in this project, they will be linked in the description below. Before the glue up, the final thing was to cut the 82-degree angle into the bottom of the vertical leg that would sit on the floor. For the glue up, I'm using Titebond 2 Dark. I first taped off the inside of the miter joints to prevent squeeze out from filling the inside of the joint. This makes for an easier cleanup. Then I used blue painter's tape to clamp each joint tight. Using 180 grit sandpaper, I broke all the hard edges on the piece and cleaned up any discrepancies in the miter joints. Then it was time to place my mark. I finished this piece in Rubio Monocoat Pure. If you want to see how I apply this finish, check out my video linked in the card above. couldn't be happier with how this piece turned out. The grain-matched edges flowed beautifully around the entire piece. This step stool will be a great piece for my son for years to come. If you enjoyed this build, check out some of my other build videos. Please give this video a like and subscribe to see more in the future. I'll see you next time.